The sleepy farming town of Boerteville in the Free State comes alive twice per year. Firstly, for the famous Nampo Harvest Day show and exhibition, and secondly, for when the South African Rally Raid Championship hits the mealie fields. For 2022, these two great events were combined to create a spectacle for the many enthusiasts who braved the hot and windy conditions. All the action is proudly brought to you by Toyota, Ford, Gulfstream and Pirelli. Keen followers would have noticed that the South African Rally Raid Championship is still in the Free State after the previous round that was hosted at the exact same place. Last week, we brought you all the highlights from round 4 of the 2022 title fight, so sit back and enjoy the action from round 5, the second Nampo 400 race in as many days. As mentioned, the race coexisted with the Nampo show and exhibition, albeit the smaller Nampo Alpha version of the world-renowned event, and for 2022, race fans were treated to a double-header as the venue hosted both rounds 4 and 5 of the hotly contested title fight in SA's premier racing formula on dirt. As with round 4 the day before, the route once again covered the entire area between the towns of Boerteville in the south all the way to the banks of the Vaal River across the water from the town of Orkney further north. Some of the route sections were going to be repeated, but the majority of the 2 loops were on uncharted farmlands and virgin tracks. As is most always the case, the route consisted of a short qualifying race early on the Saturday morning, followed by 2 identical loops of around 170 kilometers each. But before we get into the action, let's quickly cast our minds back to the overall championship and the happenings of the previous round on the day before. Chanel de Villiers was still at the top of the points ladder, but a 3rd place the day before meant that gap was shrinking.
Let's see, today's a new day. We'll try and go as quick as we can.
Teammate Henk Ladergen did what he could by winning the overall race the day before.
Yeah, the plan for today is probably the same as yesterday. Try not to get out the car, stay calm in difficult situations, and just try and get it to the end.
We were most definitely expecting a fight for overall honours between the TGRSA drivers mentioned and their teammate, Guy Bottrell, as well as the 2 fast Castrol Fords driven by the 2 Woolridge brothers. Here's younger brother Gareth setting out his plans for round 5.
Yesterday I tried, but we had a slip up in the prologue which cost us about 16 seconds, so in the draw we were too far back. I'm not going to try the same today. I want to try and get middle of the pack hopefully, so the prologue result is imperative.
During round 4, fans were treated to an epic battle in Class T1 between Team Rally Raid Hilux driver Eben Besson and wily old fox Chris Visser in the red-lined Revo. Besson emerged victorious by a narrow margin, but this was a completely new race.
So I think there's going to be a big fight. The last 2 races have been tight. The Broncos played yesterday. I think we managed to be 30 seconds ahead of him. So it was very close after 400 kilometers of racing. So today is another tough one out there, and we're looking forward to see what's playing out today.
Over in Class T1.2 for the rear-wheel drive CR6 race cars, Lance Trathui extended his points lead despite not winning the round before.
Yeah, yesterday I was very happy the last lap of the car. We did a couple of setups changes, and it's definitely worked in my favour, and I'm feeling much more comfortable in the car.
Class T saw yet another victory for up-and-coming youngster Jaden Els, who had a new plan for round 5.
So I think we've got a bit of a margin to play with today, so today I'm going all out.
Consistency is the name of the game for special vehicles, and Class A Championship leader Tim Howes knew exactly what his plans were.
Very happy. Today's another day. We just keep calm, keep smooth and get to the finish.
And as always, Class G winner and points leader was once again full of smiles while finding a way to say thank you to someone.
So now we're 8 points in the lead of our championship. So we just got to get out there and do the same again today. And to my big man, Stevie Wonder, thank you for all your support, and you guys give us another 10 kilowatts.
So these were just some of the main role players who lined up to take the early morning start of the second race at Nampo Park in just 2 days, round 5 of the 2022 South African Rally Raid Championship. The reality is that this is one of the most competitive, if not the most competitive Rally Raid series on the planet, and not long after hearing their thoughts, it was time for more than 40 cars and their crews to tackle the very short qualifying stage on the outskirts of Nampo Park. A just about 8 kilometers, the Pirelli qualifying race is long enough to make a mistake and lose valuable seconds, but not really long enough to open up a gap. It therefore turned into a mad rush of a sprint race, with only mere seconds separating the fastest guys at the front of their respective classes. The Pirelli qualifying race is a true spectacle in itself, with cars being waved off at short 60-second intervals, so it didn't take long for the flat Free State fields to be filled with heavy dust clouds, whilst SA's best were gunning for glory. When the dust settled and the stopwatch started to reveal some of its secrets, there was a little disappointment for Class G title hopefuls Jeff Minnaert and Gerrit Sneeman, who could only record the 5th fastest time. Having said that, times were so close that the Rutherford brothers, Kent and Justin in 4th position, were only 2 seconds faster, who in turn missed out on a qualifying podium by another 3 seconds. Third on this occasion belonged to the Lani brothers, Cecil and Aladis, who were beaten to the line by Werner and Ian Mostert by another 2 seconds. But a great qualifying win and pole position for their teammates Glenn Turon and Craig Galvin in the 2nd Motonetics Racing Can-Am, again by just 2 seconds the margin. The CRT of Quinton Lessing and Noel Acton was the only Class P car to enter and complete the qualifying, but there was quite a battle for Class A honours between the usual suspects. This time, however, it would not be the names of Howes and Campbell at the top of the timesheets. The championship leader had a less than perfect qualifying race and lost around 30 seconds, relegating him to the bottom of the standings. He was beaten to 2nd place by old rival and fellow Italians, Trace Price-Moore and Sean Braithwaite, by a full 27 seconds. But the men coming out on top of the short Pirelli qualifier were none other than the Farmers Meat striker of Louis Dupria and Chris Visser Jr., who stopped the clock on the fastest time at just 5 minutes and 16 seconds. And there it is on screen, a great qualifying win for Turon and Galvin in Class G ahead of the Mosterts and the Lani brothers. Lessing finished in Class P, whilst Tim Howes had to be content with a 3rd place in Class A, behind rivals Trace Price-Moore and Sean Braithwaite, and the qualifying winners Louis Dupria and Chris Visser Jr. And on to the many crews in the many different types of cars in the various classes of the production car category we go. In Class T, youngster Jaden Els and Navi Armand de Toy held their early morning promise by putting pedal to the metal in the somewhat aging King Price Extreme Renault Duster. The talented young man not only blitzed his class, but even beat quite a few of the faster Class T1 cars. The KEC Racing Duster of Johan and Sean Van Staden were once again second, around 9 seconds back, with the NWM Ford Ranger of Christo Rose and Honor Olivier just a further second back. Class T1 may not be the premier class in rally raid racing anymore, but it's still the class with the most cars, so the competition is fierce to say the least. A top result is very hard to come by, as Johan de Bruyn and Gerrit Skitter can testify. The red-line VK56 was just 9 seconds off the class winning pace, but it was only good enough for 6th fastest. In fact, it got jam-packed at the top of the Class T1 results, with Gary Berthold and Jean Moore claiming 5th fastest in their Hilux, just 1 second slower than the 4th placed Miss Navara of Jürgen Schroeder and Ryan Bland. And how is this for a performance? In only their 3rd race weekend since taking up the sport, the Blicknort brothers from Witbank, Fouchier and Bertus, placed their Team Rally Raid Hilux in a career best 3rd position after qualifying, just 1 second behind their teammates, Evan Besson and Leander Pinar in the sister Hilux. We said it got close to the top and we weren't joking. The battle between Besson and the Redline Revo of Chris Visser and Blickies Venter intensified as the two rivals set the exact same time, down to the second. But as Visser was the first one to record the time, he was awarded the pole position. And we still had 2 more exciting classes to go, such as this one for the rear-wheel drive Century CR6 cars in Class T1.2. Round 4 winners, Malcolm and Frans Koch, ran into some difficulty and failed to complete the qualifying, leaving Dewald van Breda and Adrian Ruts to claim 3rd with a time of 5 minutes and 26 seconds. It was 10 seconds slower than the 2nd place claimed by Ernst Roberts and Henry Kerner in the JCP Steel Supplies CR6, who in fact recorded an identical qualifying time as pole setters Lance Trethui and Leonard Kramer in the King Price Extreme version of the same car. A good start for the big dog here at round 5 in Nampo. And speaking of good starts, TGRSA's Shamir Varioa and Donnie Stassen didn't have the greatest when they wrong-slotted during qualifying the day before, but a time of 5 minutes and 7 seconds was fast enough for 5th in Class T1 Plus and 5th overall this time. They were beaten by the NWM Castrol Ford of Gareth Woolridge and Boyd Dreyer, who went 3 seconds faster. In fact, no less than 3 cars set an identical time of 5 minutes and 4 seconds, with TGRSA's Janelle de Villiers and Dennis Murphy and round 4 winners, Henk Ladergan and Brett Cummings, all stopping the clock on the same second. So what did it take to claim pole position? It turned out to be 1 single second, and on this occasion, that 1 second was enough to hand the pole position to the second NWM Castrol Ford Ranger of Lance Woolridge and Alvin Vonk, who had every intention to make up for not finishing the race the day before. So far, so good. Early days still in round 5 and a good indication of what was still to come. It was the name of Jaden Alls at the top of the Class T's ahead of the Van Stadens. Class T1 saw nothing separating Chris Visser and Erwin Besson in first and second, with the Blicknauts just 1 second further back. The T1.2s also had a tie at the top between Trethrui and Roberts. And it couldn't be any closer at the top of the overall and Class T1 Plus scoreboards, with Woolridge claiming pole position by just 1 second from a chasing pack that consisted of very fast drivers in the form of Ladergan, de Villiers and the second Woolridge. And this was only the very short Pirelli qualifying race, so join us after the break to see how the main race unfolded here at Nampo Park during round 5 of the 2022 South African Rally Raid Championship. Welcome back to Nampo Park for the second consecutive race in as many days. We've already seen loads of action on the day and the race proper was yet to come. It was time for 40 of the country's fastest drivers in the country's finest off-road machines to drop the hammer and get the all-important round 5 of the South African Rally Raid Championship underway. The top 10 qualifiers once again had a draw that allowed the fastest guys to pick their respective starting positions. Ideally, one would like to be around 4th or 5th on the road, but on this occasion, current champion Henk Ladergan decided he'll try and win it from the front. So at 9:30 on the Saturday morning, Ladergan and Cummings set off on their quest to win their second race in as many days. They were followed by the Team Rally Raid Hilux crew of the Malalan brothers, Johan and Werner Horn, and the 2 NWM Castrol Ford Rangers of the Woolridge brothers. The first one was in the hands of Lance and Alvin Vonk, whilst younger brother Gareth and Navi Boyd Dreyer occupied the second Ford. They were followed by a trio of TGRSA Hiluxes in the form of Janelle de Villiers and Dennis Murphy, Shamir Varioa and Donnie Stassen, and Guy Bottrell with Simon Vasey-Lyle. The first 7 were all behind the wheels of the big-wheeled Class T1 Plus cars, while the next 3 to tackle the race were all in Class T1. Round 4 winners, Erwin Besson and Leander Pienaar, were next up, just ahead of arch rivals Chris Visser and Blikkies Venter in the Redline Revo, Team Rally Raid Hilux car of Forshire and Bertus Blicknout. In an effort to leave the big drama till last, we'll get back to the top guys who are fighting for overall victory in just a few minutes. So let's for now cast our attention to the remaining 30 or so crews and their respective adventures here in the Free State. Class G for the so-called side-by-sides truly provides a great port of entry into the exciting sport of rally raid racing. It helps to develop young talent but also provides more experienced racers with an opportunity to compete at national level at a relatively affordable cost. But don't be fooled, the racing is as competitive as it can get. Just ask pole setters Glenn Turon and Craig Galvin, who started first but dropped down to 4th by the end of the race. They were beaten to the line by the defending champions, the Lani brothers, with Cecil and Eladis claiming the final step of the podium in Class G. Less than 3 minutes separated Turon and the Lanis, but there was a bit of daylight between the Lanis and eventual second place finishers, Francois de Witt and Eerwald van Rensburg, who managed to complete the nearly 400-kilometer route in a time of 4 hours and 59 minutes. It was fast, but not quite fast enough, as the fastest time on the day belonged to veteran class racer and former champion Werner Mostert, with son Ian in the hot seat. What's more is that Mostert's main title rival and points leader coming into this round Jeff Minott, had an accident 65 kilometers into the second loop, bringing an end to their race and compromising their title fight. But that's racing, and Mostert was happy to survive the Nampo race with a win.
Had a good run. Very tough out there, sands very thick, cars running very high temperatures, so you got to pace it at times.
And on to the battle in Class A of the special vehicle category we go. The men to beat so far in 2022 were none other than former champions and championship points leaders, Tim Howes and Gary Campbell. Howes did what he could here in Boerteville and won the round the day before, but on this day there was nothing he could do about the pace of Loic de Preer and Chris Visser Jr. The Farmers Meat striker of de Preer won the qualifying race and never looked back as they stormed to a 6-minute victory over Howes, whose engine problems didn't help the cause either. It was a popular win for de Preer and Visser.
Very, very nice. The sand is also thick today, like yesterday, but there by the trees, enjoyable, lekker, tight, fast.
And here's the final classifications for the Warriors in the special vehicle category at the end of the Nampo 400. There were no finishes in Class P, whilst the name of Minott was absent from the Class G leaderboard as well. Instead, it showed a comfortable margin for the Mosterts over De Wit and Van Rensburg and the Lani brothers. As you just saw, de Preer and Visser got the upper hand over Howes and Campbell on this occasion, whilst Prace Moore failed to reach the finish in Class A. And this is what it's all about, the chance to spray the winner's bubbly from the podium and even more so from its top step. Congratulations to the respective winners of the special vehicle category at the Nampo 400. We were not only nearing the end of the Nampo 400, but with only 2 rounds to go after this one, we are also getting close to crunch time as far as the various championships are concerned. Someone who is not only young enough but also fast enough to win several titles over the next few years is youngster Jaden Els, alongside Navi Armand de Toy in the King Price Extreme Renault Duster. The young man had a good lead on the Class T points ladder and made his intentions clear by saying that he was going to go flat out, which he did. And once again, it was good enough to claim yet another victory. The gap to second place was 4.5 minutes, and that second place once again belonged to the veteran racer, Johan van Staden and his son Sean in the KEC Racing Renault Duster, who had a consistent run ahead of the third placed Hendrik and Heinrich Duplessis in their Ford Ranger, who rounded out the Class T podium. But it was all smiles for youngster Jaden Els with his second win for the weekend.
It's fun out there, but it's hot. But yeah, can't complain.
As we count down the various classes in the 2 categories, the power becomes more and the wheels on the cars get bigger, and they don't get much bigger or more powerful than in Class T 1.2. These locally built monsters are also a force to be reckoned with at Dakar each year, and in the hands of drivers like Ernst Roberts, Malcolm Koch and Lance Trethuri, they certainly provide for a great spectacle here in the Free State. Roberts and co-driver Kerner are normally near the very top of the fight in their JCP Steel Supplies CR6, but a flat tyre and a faulty onboard jack cost them a bit of time. They beat the unique WCT Hilux Turbo of Simon Murray and Kim Bergman to the Class T 1.2 podium, but third was as high as Roberts would go. The difference to second place? Just 3 minutes and 8 seconds. And that's not a lot when you take into consideration that they just raced for nearly 400 kilometers over the flat Free State fields. Second place on this occasion belonged to round 4 winners, father and son, Malcolm and Frans Koch, in the sister JCP Steel Supplies CR6. They were fast, but not fast enough, as the top time on the day was set by the King Price CR6 of the big dog, Lance Trethuri and Leonard Kramer. It was a far from perfect run for the big man, who hit a fence and got a puncher, but still did enough to claim the win.
Yeah, it's been great. I've had a good weekend, and I'm just glad to be at the end. It was hard work. It was very, very hot.
A car from Class T1 will probably not end up winning the overall race anymore, but with 12 starters, it's the class with the most cars and therefore fierce competition to say the least. Unfortunately for the Blicknor brothers, who qualified so well, a technical problem forced them to the sidelines. They weren't the only ones though. Both Jürgen Schroeder and Scott Berger Jr. were forced to retire as well. So Richard Leek was the last of the qualified finishers in the class after starting well but losing time later on. Dubai-based businessman Tommy Ball and local lad Wade Harris took 8th place in the class. The red-line Revo of Bell finished around 14 minutes from 7th place finishers Philip Buerta and Roelof van Vuren. who continued their 100% finishing record in the Redline VK56 since taking up the sport more than a year ago. Quite remarkable. The Redline squad is pretty well represented in this class, with yet another VK56 occupying a spot on the scoreboard. This one in the hands of former circuit racer Johan de Bruin and experienced navvy Gerrit Schutte. De Bruin is quickly finding his feet and finished 6th, just less than a minute behind former bike racer Nick Pienaar and co-driver Carl Swanepoel in their Redline VK50. You know this is a competitive field if an old hand like Gary Berthold with Jean Moore in the hot seat finished 4th in their Toyota Hilux. Berthold is an experienced campaigner, but on this occasion, he narrowly missed out on a podium finish as the last of the podium steps belonged to young German driver Daniel Schroeder with Ryan Bland calling the notes. Schroeder and his older Nissan Navara are proving to be a menace so far this season, and his speed at Berteville was good enough for 3rd in class. So now that we've counted them down, it doesn't take much to figure out what we're going to say next. Or even better, which names we're going to mention. That's right, Chris Visser and Albertus Venter and Eben Besson and Leander Pienaar, Redline Revo and Team Rally Raid Hilux. For the second day in succession, these two crews were locked in a battle, and what a battle it was. The day before, it was Besson who emerged victorious, mainly thanks to a late puncher in the Visser camp. But their battle during round 5 was epic to say the least, with only mere seconds separating them after miles and miles of gravel road racing. In the end, Visser stopped the clock on a time of 4 hours, 17 minutes and 40 seconds, 17 seconds faster than the time set by Besson. It was not a lot, but enough to claim the win.
The team was unbelievable. We had a small problem with the power steering when we came in, and luckily they changed it in time. So yeah, the team was unbelievable.
And on that high note, it's time to find out what happened at the very front of the field. Earlier on the Saturday morning, Henk Ladergan and Brett Cummings set off in their Toyota Gazoo Racing SA Hilux in their quest to take their second win on the trot and to reclaim the top spot on the podium. But as has become the norm at the sharp end of rally raid racing, the competition is as fierce as ever. Ladergan not only had to fend off the challenges from his own TGRSA teammates in the form of de Villiers and Murphy and Variawa and Stassen, along with Bottrell and Vasey Lyle, but also the similar Team Rally Raid Hilux car of the Horn brothers, and of course the furiously fast NWM Castrol Fords of Lance Woolridge and Alvin Vonk, and the second one driven by Gareth Woolridge and Boyd Dreyer. The Fords were keen to take the fight to the Toyotas, as they have done so many times in the past, but unfortunately for Lance Woolridge, his challenge came to a halt early on, thanks to a cracked oil pipe on the Ranger's turbocharger. With one Woolridge removed from the equation, it was up to the other to fly the flag for Ford, and that's exactly what brother Gareth did. The younger Woolridge drove superbly to take the overall lead of the race at the halfway mark.
Yeah, the car's been unbelievable. It didn't skip a beat, so really, really happy.
But there was still one full race loop to go where anything could happen, and true to form, it did. It was a hot day here in the Free State, but fortunately these cars are equipped with air conditioning. But on this occasion, aircon was bad for Gareth Woolridge, as a short in the system made the car cut out a few times. They eventually found the problem, but 5 minutes were lost, and 5 minutes on a day like this relegated the Ford from a chance to fight for the victory all the way down to 4th. They finished ahead of the Team Rally Raid Hilux of the Horn brothers from Malalan, who were still finding their feet since joining this class. And unfortunately for Guy Bottrell and Simon Vasey Lyle, their TGRSA Hilux joined the list of retirees when they collided with the stricken Class G car of Minute. Fortunately, no one was harmed. So this left us with the fight for the podium positions and the overall victory in Class T1+. And by now it was pretty clear that it was once again going to be an all red and white TGRSA podium. The question was, who would stand on the top step? In the end, Shamira Variawa and Donnie Stassen put up a valiant fight. Their pace was good, but only good enough for 3rd on the day. Still a great result for the Joburg-based resident and the Nelspruit-based navigator. The gap between Variawa in 3rd and the 2nd place car was just 52 seconds to be precise, and that's not a lot after such a long and demanding race. The crew in 2nd, Chanel de Villiers and Dennis Murphy. The old Dakar veteran had a clean day and never needed to get out of the car, but although still fast, he simply didn't have an answer for teammate Henk Ladergan's speed on the day. Ladergan and Brett Cummings showed why they are the current champions and put in a dominant drive from 1st on the road to claim their 2nd victory in just 2 days. The victory margin was 1 minute and 42 seconds in the end, enough to claim the top step of the podium and more than enough to reclaim the #1 spot in the championship points table. A final reminder of how it ended for the crews in the production car category. Els came out top in Class T ahead of the Van Stadens, whilst Trathui scored a popular win in Class T 1.2 ahead of round 4 winners Malcolm and Franz Koch, with Roberts and Kerner in third. Class T1 provided one of the most epic battles in recent history, with Chris Visser just getting the upper hand over Eben Besson and German driver Daniel Schroeder claiming third. And another dominant performance for the red and white squad, who took all 3 podium positions. Ladachan took yet another emphatic victory over his teammates De Villiers and Variawa. And finally, the chance to take it all in for all the crews that got to taste the sweet taste of success from the coveted steps of the South African Rally Raid Championship podium. But it must have been the most sweet for overall winners and championship leaders Henk Ladachan and Brett Cummings.
Yeah, no, so we've managed to claw ourselves back. It's not over yet. So we have one more weekend to go, and luckily it's going to be nice taking the championship down to the last event.
And that was that from Boerderville and the famous Nampo Park for what proved to be an exhilarating weekend's racing. The overall championship, as well as various class battles, will be decided on the 11th and 12th of November, when the series draws to a close with yet another doubleheader in the Free State for 2 rounds of the Parade 400. All the hot and dusty action was proudly brought to you by Ford, Toyota, Gulfstream and Pirelli.